You are confronting your past, burning it, not letting it control you anymore, and rising again to be a new and better you.
A podcast hosted by Jody Tree. Joe on the mic, Leader Talk, tackles various leadership strategies that cover self development, self leadership, including spiritual and physical health of leaders. This podcast will feature guests ranging from military leaders, thought leaders, health and nutrition leaders, spiritual leaders, nonprofit leaders, and many more. All right, welcome, guys. We are back, and I have a special guest, such an important guest. May Alirad is a community leader, activist, philanthropist, entrepreneur, author, and school social worker. She is the founder and CEO of DeLao Coaching, with a mission to empower survivors of assault to take control of their life. May authored the book entitled Was I Assaulted? My guide to healing as a survivor, to empower fellow survivors of sexual assault to find their voice and take control back of their life. The book will consist of her 25 years of personal experiences, lessons learned as a survivor and a therapist, and reflections for the reader. The book, and just so you guys know, the book will be available today for our listeners. Today is Monday, April 26th on Amazon. And she's excited about her book to get that information out there for all you guys to look. This is an important subject. And May, I appreciate you coming on. Thank you so much for taking time out.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Joe, for having me. I'm really excited to be on your show.
Yes, thank you so much. And when you reached out to me and you talked about your story, you gave me a little snapshot. I was like, you know what? We need to talk about this. We need to talk about sexual assault. You know, I was in the military for 22 years in the military, and we had these classes. But you know what? When we have these classes, we needed to have somebody like you to come in and talk to us about the importance of it. Because, yeah, if you don't have a face associated with the event and the importance of sharing this, you can kind of get lost in just the normal monotone. Somebody's teaching me something, and I have to be here. But no, this is important. So, and I would just want to share with our audience too that look, this is something that's important for leaders to be exposed to, because like I was sharing you before, when I was looking up this research at the National Sexual Violence Research Center, they said that 70% of employers did not have a workplace prevention program. And that broke my heart. Now, I know in the federal government that I was in, yes, we had a program. But I truly believe that it's important for employers to get your book, whether they're self-employed or corporate, they need to get your book. And it's going to be free, like I said. So can you tell us, May, and I know it's kind of hard and it's going to be an odd question, but what drove you to write your book?
My mentor says, May, you can't say every question is a good question. But Joe, that is a really good question. And so what drove me to write my book, I really had an experience. I would say I had a God experience. And so on September 13th, 2020, literally just a few months ago, I was driving my car, and one of my friends and I were praying over the this car speaker, and I had asked her to pray for me because I was going to my mom's house and we were going to really pray down heaven, like, hey, I really need you to pray for me because we don't want them demons following us. So I was like, can you really pray? Can you pray for me? Pray me, through this. So she's like, yeah, I'll pray for you. So then as she's praying for me, I felt this physical manifestation of this, that whatever it was, like that spirit, like of
Mm,
guilt, shame, fear, condemnation, like stuck in my throat, like not wanting to come out. And I literally had to keep calling on the name of Jesus. And it was so weird because it was like, I literally felt it wanting to
mm,
like stay in here, like inside me. But we were praying, and then it came out. And literally the moment that that thing came out of me, I just felt this sense of liberation. I'm talking about freedom like never before. I mean, in my book, I equate it to like I started my sexual journey at the age of 6. I'm
Mm.
36 right now. So imagine having to carry this backpack for 30 years. Like, and I didn't know this backpack was this heavy because I just got used to it, carrying it every day, day in and day out. And it was like Jesus, like, remove that backpack from my back. And I like felt like I could fly. I mean, like, I think that's the best like way to really put it. Like, I just felt this sense of freedom. And so at that moment, I just said yes. Yes, God, to whatever you want me to do. Yes, to telling my story on whatever platforms. Yes, to whatever event, conference, summit, whatever. Just yes. Because the freedom that I feel right now, I want everyone in the whole world, not even just the US, I want everyone in the whole world to be able to experience this freedom because it was nothing that I've ever felt before in my life. And, I've actually been a Christian all my life. So, since the age of 4, when we came to America from the country of Laos, my parents threw us on a church bus and I went to church. But it wasn't until September 13th, 2020, that I had this liberation, even when I was going to see a therapist. So, about 4 years ago, I started getting professional help. I started seeing a therapist at the YWCA, and she was amazing. I mean, she was just a wonderful lady, and I learned so much from her, but I still felt so much shame,
Mm.
fear, condemnation, embarrassment. Like I didn't even want to tell anyone that I was seeing a therapist. Like that was embarrassing. And it's funny because I am a therapist. I am also a therapist, not a therapist ashamed of seeing a therapist. And it was just it was very uncomfortable. And I think the reason is because it was still such a bondage for me.
Mm.
Like, I would say I didn't have a voice, and I did not find my voice until September 13th. And what that means to me to find your voice is having the freedom to openly share. I mean, I had terrible things happen to me in 25 years from the age of 6 up until 32, like being sexually assaulted by multiple people at different times in my life and like living with the aftermath of that for whatever, 4 years after that. Like I literally just found my voice, and when I said yes to God, I didn't know that, 7 months forward, I would have a book to show everyone. I didn't know that I would be on, all these different shows. I didn't know I would be on your podcast. I didn't know I was going to be on the radio talking about this topic. And I'm just so incredibly honored and humbled at the same time that God is allowing me to use this message to touch other people's lives.
No, and I appreciate it, and I thank you that you actually said yes to be that voice, because you know what, people need to hear it. Your experiences and your church background is also very important, because there are things that happen. Look, a church is a place where people come to get healing. There's a lot of broken people that come to church. And then when things like this happen, sexual assault, they kind of like, and I've experienced them. So they kind of, oh, well, we'll just brush that aside. That's not supposed to happen here, but it does. So this is, like I said, this is good for leaders to hear, that when we speak it out and obey God, you're bringing healing to a lot of people that need to hear this, that it's okay to speak it out and to not have that burden that they don't need to have anymore, because they can experience the healing and not get used to it, because they shouldn't get used to the pain, because God wants to bring healing. And we were talking earlier, and we were talking about how maybe self-blame might be a hindrance to somebody actually speaking out. Is that true?
Definitely, definitely. I have a chapter in my book about forgiveness, and not just forgiveness for the offender, but forgiveness for yourself, because we blame ourselves. And Joe, to get back to that church is supposed to be the safe place, it actually
Mm.
happened on a church bus. Like, I was sexually assaulted at the age of 6 on a church bus by another child, and so yeah, it's and just to go back to your question about self-blame, yeah, it's huge. It's a huge barrier in people finding healing and people sharing their voice to come to the realization that, hey, you know you don't have to blame yourself. And Joe, I went to therapy for 2 years and I still could not get that revelation
Mm.
until I found out about the freeze response. And I would love to share that excerpt from my book now, if that's okay. I
No,
think
no,
it's
please
right on
share.
time.
Hmm.
All right. Desperately trying to find anything to help deal with triggers, a video on YouTube popped up in the search result. It was called The Freeze Response and Sexual Assault by Therapy in a Nutshell. That caught my eye because in the counseling profession, the fight and flight response is very well known for how our body responds to dangerous situations. But the freeze response, well, that was new to me. After watching the video, it seemed like something inside me had been enlightened, as if for the first time in 30 years, shame and guilt had permanently dissolved into thin air, and I was able to stop blaming myself. A miracle, if there ever was one. That's when I realized the power of the freeze response and the need to share it with you. You have a part of your brain that, for the purpose of this scenario, will be referred to as the primitive brain. The primitive brain is in charge of internal things, such as pumping blood through your body, breathing, metabolizing food, etc. All the beautiful things our body does without asking or needing our permission in order to keep us alive. So during a traumatic situation, the primitive brain, in its infinite wisdom that comes from above, does something amazing. It shuts down your whole body as if to portray or convince the danger around you that you are dead. Why is this significant? Well, let's think about it with this example. A lion is hunting a gazelle in the wild. The lion chases the gazelle, finally bringing it down. The gazelle plays dead while it is on the ground, and when the lion becomes distracted, the gazelle sprints away. The point of the story is the gazelle lives to see another day. When you are in danger, either before, during, or at the end of being assaulted, your brain does the same exact thing. It shuts your muscles down. You are immobile, not fighting, not resisting, just frozen in the moment. When it is over, you regain your normal functioning again. You can't tell your brain to stop pumping blood to your heart, nor for it to stop your lungs from accepting air to breathe. You also could not have told your muscles to fight more than you did. Your primitive brain told your body to freeze in order to save your life. The brain's main function is to preserve life. If you are reading this book right now, you are not dead. Your life was spared. Your brain did its job. So the next time you want to blame yourself for not doing more, just stop. And instead, thank your brain that you are alive. You are literally a survivor. You survived death. So
Wow.
that is an excerpt from the book. Joe, let's do a download break. Go on Amazon right now and download your book today, right now. The ebook is free. That right there, friends, gave me so much peace. When I heard that, Can't nobody tell me anything. I was like, oh, I couldn't have done anything else. I couldn't have fought more. I couldn't have yelled more. I couldn't have done anything. When I froze, it was because my brain made me freeze. So when you look
Wow.
at it in that context, it's really revolutionary.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. 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 And you know what? It makes me go back to some of the times that something's occurred to me in the past and wondering why I didn't respond. And I don't want, and men, if this has happened to you, it's okay to speak up, because there's men that listen to this as well as women. And sexual assault, sexual harassment, and rape is not just limited to women. Even though we have May on, and she's being brave, sharing her story, and helping you guys to get awareness. Men, you need to listen to this too, because I know some men that they were assaulted when they were younger, and they're still dealing with that pain in the past. And this is a great way to realize, hey, look, some of those things that happened in the past because you froze, you didn't fight back. This is science. This is science, and to help you guys understand, look, you were young, you froze. This is a reason why. It's not because you allowed it, it's because your brain was reacting to something that it had to process and tried to save you by not fighting back. So that's thank you, May, for sharing that. And guys, like she said, get the book, get the book, get the book. It's free to download, and it's a great resource. All right, folks, time for a sponsor break. Hey, everybody, don't forget to like and subscribe, comment, send me a DM if you like this episode, and share it with your friends. Again, share it with your friends. This is good leadership stuff that everybody needs to know. Visit my website at joedetrie.com, joedetrie.com, to learn more about me. And if you want a free coaching call, hey, go to my website, sign up for a complimentary coaching call. I'd love to sit down with you and help you figure out how to make 2021 the best year ever. Hey guys, real quick, if you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain real quick. It's free. Did you hear what I said? It's free to make your podcast. They have creation tools to allow you to record and edit your podcast. They also have free music that you can use. Not to mention, they will distribute your podcast to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts for you. All right. And you can also make money from the podcast with minimum listenership. Okay. They have everything that you need. Look, download the app, Anchor, like the anchor on a boat. And the website is anchor.fm. Anchor.fm. Get it. What are you waiting for? Start your podcast now. Do it. Anchor.fm or download it on the app. Talk to you later, guys. All right, back to our episode. So you let us know about that freeze, but I know people, and there's some people probably listening right now that they've gone through the experience and they're not reacting to it well. Now, hopefully, after they've heard this, that they've like, hey, yeah, wow, this is revelation. I can ask God about this, pray about it so I can get some healing. But there's some people that react destructively to themselves. Is there anything that you can share with us about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I have a chapter in the book called Destructive Coping Strategies.
Mm.
And so I didn't really highlight in my book the all of the various coping strategies that people use, just such as drugs, alcohol, maybe sex, right? Gambling. I didn't highlight all of those. I really just highlighted the ones that impacted me. And the ones that really impacted me was disassociation. Okay,
Mm.
I know you wouldn't think of that as destructive, but it was very destructive. I just disassociated. Like, oh, I just got raped. Oh, let me put that in underground somewhere and never think about
Mm.
that again because I have to be functional in life. So it was my mind helping me to just live out my life, I guess, successfully, or just to help me live out my life and not have emotional breakdowns. Like I disassociated from what was going on from my past. Another coping strategy that I used was, I think, I don't know, coping or not, but I got to a point where I was exploited, and then I began exploiting other people, like whether
Mm,
knowingly or unknowingly, and just to go back, I think, to my childhood when I was 7. And Joe, I share this openly in, all of my different venues, because it's so important that when I was sexually assaulted, I then began sexually assaulting other children.
mm,
And because I never got any help for it, I never got help until I was 32 years old. And I just kept that all in because I never got professional help for it. I didn't even tell my parents that I started doing that to other children. And I think with my business, with my ministry, like prevention, awareness, education, and prevention is huge, because I think if I would have had a curriculum that taught me about sexual assault, about sexual awareness, about, hey, if someone touches you, like good touch, bad touch kind of thing, I think I would have been more empowered to tell someone to say something. But because it was the first time that I heard about it, or the first time it happened was that it happened to me, I was so terrified that I didn't tell anyone, and I blamed
mm.
myself that it happened, that I then started abusing other children or started assaulting other children. And that was something that I wanted to delete forever in my memory, and at no point wanted to put in my book. But I really felt the Lord wanted me to put that in there to really just show the ugliness of all of these things, right? That nothing about sexual assault or sexual abuse is beautiful. All of it is ugly, and the Lord, I really felt led to put that there to, I think, be able to connect with someone else that has that same story, or maybe, are blaming themselves, like, why did I abuse other kids, or why did I do that, and just to empower you and to encourage you to forgive yourself, that you also, like me, we didn't know what we were doing. Like, this thing happened to us, and then we did it to other people. That's how children process things, and my therapist would tell me all the time, and I still felt so bad about it still. But in my book, I actually wrote a letter
Mm.
to all the girls that I ever hurt, all the girls that I ever hurt. So I actually wrote them a specific letter in my book. And there's excerpts, so there's reflections throughout my book, 20, 30 different reflections, that now I'll say, okay, now it's your turn. Why
Mm.
don't you write a letter to someone that you have hurt? And so it's not just a book that you read, it's more of a journal and a reflection. I think I really was able to put on both hats for the book, I guess. I was able to share my story as a survivor, but then I was also able to incorporate my mental health background into the book that would be healing and empowering also for other survivors.
Wow. Guys. And we said it before, I'm going to say it again. Download the book. Download the book. This is so important because we don't, and I know I've seen it before. People go into alcohol abuse, drug abuse, yes, and even going into other abuses. You would think that they would avoid doing sexual things because it's harmful, but it's what we've heard it before. Hurt people, and it's a true statement. Until we find freedom in Christ to speak about it. And that's why I go back to again, I said, thank you for coming on, being brave, sharing your story, because I know it's scary. It's scary to say, look, this is what happened in my past. But you know what? There's freedom in talking about it. And that's why we're saying to you guys, to you leaders that are listening, that this is a real deal. There's might be people in your organization that, hey, we talked about some of the things that are coping mechanisms, but one of the things that I read about too is that when people start maybe misbehaving at work, having an attitude, maybe isolating themselves, absenteeism at work, could be indicators that there's something going on. It might not necessarily be sexual assault, but if two people are avoiding each other, or maybe arguing, or things are happening, it's something that, as an employer, as a leader, you want to check out and investigate. That person that's being avoiding, you want to approach them. And in saying that, before I start saying things that are wrong, because I've been through trainings and stuff like that, but how can leaders actually respond in an appropriate way to not like scare the person off if they believe like someone in their workplace, or maybe even a coworker, might have gone through some sexual assault or sexual abuse?
Yeah, I want to reflect on this article, or it's on YouTube by Brea Brown, and it's about how to react when someone tells you that they've been sexually assaulted. And she said it in such a beautiful way. Yeah, Brea Brown on empathy. And she said the best thing that you can say is, I don't even know what to say right now. I'm just so glad you told me. And by just those simple words, it helps them to realize, like, if they want to cry, they can cry. If they want to share more, they can share more. And I think the most important thing is really getting to a really having them go on their comfort level, right? If they want to share more, like I would say, don't ask any probing questions or prompting questions. Like, you're not the investigator. Like, they're coming to you because they want to share, and let them share as much or as little as they want to share. I think oftentimes it's really that listening ear that they're looking for, not, well, what were you doing? Or, oh, well, it wasn't that bad. At least that didn't happen. Like, no, nobody wants to hear that. And I think during my journey, when I was telling coworkers about it or shared it with them, like, it was like, well, what were you wearing? Why are you still with them? And it was very victim blaming. So I would say, definitely don't do victim blaming, don't do victim shaming. I think just be present with them at the moment and ask them, what would you like from me? Like, what would you want me to do? And it's interesting because, sometimes it could be someone at the workplace, other times it could be somewhere else, maybe at home, maybe whatever, like outside of the work. But I think some things that employers can really pay attention to, and Joe, you briefly touched on it, is the dynamic of that person changing. Like, for example, if they have always been like a happy, bubbly person and saying hi to everyone all the time, and then all of a sudden they like shut down, are really dismissive, or it's like you know that there's something that's clearly different, like, about this person. Something else is maybe marked weight gain or weight loss, you
Mm.
know that some people may overeat or undereat, and I'm not saying, oh, I saw you're gaining weight, there's something happened, like, obviously, let's be more cunning than that, and just saying, hey, just wanted to check in with you and see how are things going, like, how's the family, how's life, is there anything, that you want to update me on or share with me, and let it be light, like, don't let it be like, I know you gained 30 pounds. Like, okay, nobody
Yeah, yeah,
wants to
yeah, yeah.
hear that. Or,
You want to be that
you,
obvious.
you lost 20 pounds. It's smart. Like, no, like, really just make it light. And I know with me, when I'm with my students, like, I'm a school social worker as well. When I'm with my students, when I build that rapport with them, we don't talk anything about their suicide letter. Okay. Like, when I first bring them in, I'm like, hey, I'm May, just wanted to check in with you. I check in with kids periodically, and just to see how you're doing. Like, so what's been going on? And then, they'll have their guards down. Then once you see their guards down, you'll see them more talkative. Like, how's the kids? Everybody loves talking about their children. I do. I love talking about my daughter. Okay, I'll just light up my little Eden. Do you want to see pictures? So talk about things that, how's your husband? Like, people like talking about themselves, their family, their business, their careers, or all of that. And then at the end, like, after they open up, it's like, okay, I just wanted to check in with you. Like, I just want you to know that, I have an open door. If you ever need to talk about anything, I'm here for you. I'm here to support you. And just really leaving it like that. And they may tell you at that moment, and they may not, but at least you plant that seed in their mind that if they ever feel comfortable telling you, that they will.
Wow, guys, again, was I assaulted? My guide to healing as a survivor. Download it. It's free. I'm telling you, this book is so valuable. I'm telling you guys, just the information, the story, the reflections can help you guys understand what it is about sexual assault and how it's a, lack of a better term, it's insidious, because it creeps in and it makes the person want to shut down and not share and carry a burden that they don't need to be carrying. And then, like May was saying, and then it hurts other people because the person doesn't know how to cope with it. So it turns into bad coping mechanisms that can hurt other people as well as being destructive for that individual. And so I'm glad, May, that you shared that. You know what? It's just talk to people. When you see the like slight indicators, like you were talking about, be a friend. That's all it is. Be a friend. Talk to the person. Let them know that they're in a safe place. If you feel that something's going on, because that's what they need. They need a safe place to talk about it and to be able to tell somebody and not feel like they're being shamed or like, oh, well, you asked for it because of the way, like you said, the way you dressed or the way you shouldn't have went out that person, you should have drank so much, and all we've heard all these different excuses, but it doesn't help the person because they're the victim. They're the one that's hurting inside. And I shared this on a podcast that I was interviewed on, that the adults that have that pain, that are kind of aggressive or kind of regressive or whatever they have, and you talked about, every adult has a little child within them that's been hurt that needs some healing. And I'm glad you talked about that it started when you were a little child. And anybody who's gone through this, it started somewhere, and that little child or that young adult is still living within that adult until they come to a healing place. And you talked about it in your car. And before we close up, you said it was 25 years, and then of personal experiences, and then it led up to last September when you talked about that freedom of confessing it. And how can you encourage someone right now that might be still in that spot that they don't want to come out? What would you tell that person to encourage them to, hey, just let somebody know?
I think the most important thing is to believe that you deserve healing. I think that oftentimes, because it's a lot of self-blaming going on, that we feel like, you know what, I've done too much, I've said too much, I've gone way too off, I'm off on the deep end. I don't deserve healing. I don't deserve forgiveness. And I just want to tell you that you do deserve it. And you have to believe it. And it took me 2.5 years of teaching from my pastors at the church to believe and have faith that it was possible for me to heal. That I just, when I first started therapy, I thought I was going to get to a point of healing, like, oh my gosh, I'm healed. No more triggers ever again. Like, my life is going to be perfect, all sunshines and rainbows, moving forward from now on. But it doesn't work like that. Um, I would say I got on my self-actualization healing journey on September 13th, but I have to walk in my healing every day. At any point in time, I could get triggered. At any point in time, one of my, you know, people that was somebody that assaulted me, raped me could pop in my mind, like the image of their face could pop in my mind at any moment. But then at those moments, I learned how to ground myself and use grounding techniques such as positive imagery, like picturing a place or an image that makes me feel safe. Like for example, my safe image is when I was around that age 6 or 7, around the time that it happened, that I was holding hands with Christ. Like, I knew it was Christ. Because it was like so bright. All I knew was he was holding my hand, and I couldn't look at him because of all his glory and brightness, but I was holding his hand, and every time there was danger in my way, like snakes or whatever, like he would strike them down and kill them. And that is my safe place. And that every time I feel like, oh, something bad or, whatever, like I go there in my mind. Like, and what I mean is that I just visualize that. I'm like, okay, this is my safe place. I'm safe. Whatever happened can't hurt me anymore. And so there's several grounding techniques in my book. So I call it the 3S and the 3Ts. And so the 3S's: sense, your senses, right? Sight, smell, sound, right? Those are the 3S's. And then the 3Ts are your taste, your touch, and your thoughts. So when you are triggered, you can get triggered in any one of those 6 ways. And then when you learn grounding techniques, you can do them in each one of those ways. Like I just taught you a grounding technique for thought, right? Like a grounding technique for sight is maybe having a picture of something, or actually having something with you and looking at it that brings you comfort, right? Maybe it's your grandma's, necklace or something like that, like touching it, looking at it. And as many senses as you can combined, like the more effective the grounding techniques will be.
Yeah. Those are so important. And I'll share with you a grounding technique that I have, and I love it. Whenever I get chaotic in my mind, too many things going on, and I want to calm myself, I go back to a trip that we took, my wife and I, to Hawaii. And there was a beach there, and where the waves were crashing on the rocks. And I just think about that time, the sounds, the smell in the air, the pounding of the waves on the rocks, and how it was so comforting. And it always brings me to a calmer place, where I would like to be, instead of, when too many things start coming in, deadlines, this and that, I have to fix this recording, and I got another person trying, and it gets chaotic. And so, yeah, grounding techniques really work.
Yeah,
And
I love that example that you gave
yeah.
too. It was so vivid. I love
Mhm.
it because you're, even though it's an image in your mind, like a thought grounding, you're incorporating the sounds, what it looks like, what it feels like, what does it smell like there. So
Mhm.
that's beautiful. That's
Yeah.
really beautiful.
Yeah. So, and again, guys, we got to say it again. Today, you can download her book out of Amazon, titled "Was I Assaulted? My Guide to Healing as a Survivor." Okay, guys, this is a wonderful, wonderful book. May Alirad, that she wrote this book for you guys to experience healing. And I would also go even further to say, for leaders to use this book to help them in their workplace, to help them to understand this sexual assault, sexual harassment in a different light, so they can say, man, this is something that needs to be addressed. And I don't want my workplace, I don't want to have a culture of fear in my workplace. I want to make sure my people can be able to come here and have a safe place, a safe environment for them to come work because I care about my people.
Yeah, Joe, I love that you said that. That is beautiful, because one of the reasons why I wrote the book was really to give an inside perspective of what an internal dialogue sounds like for a
Mm,
survivor. And so, although you may not have been sexually assaulted, sexually abused, you may know someone, one of your employees, right? And so you're probably thinking, why is this person still with them if they're sexually assaulting or abusing them? Why are they still here? And, I think it's interesting because oftentimes, sometimes people don't know that they've been sexually assaulted. And Joe, I do have one more excerpt that I want to
okay,
read on that topic of
let's do it.
me not knowing. Okay. Something interesting to note is that I stayed with most of the people who raped or sexually assaulted me. What's more interesting is I never even considered what happened to me was sexual assault. I remember having a phone conversation with a friend. I was telling him about how I was having problems in my relationship and that I didn't trust my partner. I admitted to currently being sexually active, and then I felt inclined to tell him about my first sexual encounter with this boyfriend. I told him that we were messing around and I was facing away from my boyfriend. Then the next thing I know, his penis was inside me. I pushed him off and ran to the bathroom crying. Then I came back. He was still naked, saying, "That was really bad sex." I felt terrible about what just happened, but even worse because he had said it was bad. We then went out to eat and he pretended as if nothing had happened. We later had sex again that night, but this time I took charge. If we were going to have sex, it was going to be on my terms moving forward. After I finished telling my friend, he was stuck on the part about me running into the bathroom and crying. I was trying to convince him that the sexual encounter was consensual after that, so it was okay. It wasn't until I heard these words, "May, you were raped. Do you know that?" that the thought of being a victim of sexual assault crossed my mind. Although what my friend was saying, notebook wise, sounded correct, I never saw myself as a victim before. Then I said, well, he didn't hit me, beat me, or hold me down, so it could not have been rape. Yeah, my feelings were hurt, but physical abuse did not accompany it. So my justification was that rape could only happen with someone you didn't know behind a garbage can and accompanied with physical assault. What happened to me was in an expensive hotel room with my boyfriend, and he didn't hit me. So in my mind, it simply could not have been rape. In addition, I didn't want to compare my situation with someone who had it a lot worse than me. Those individuals suffered post traumatic stress disorder and flashbacks. I never had that. Therefore, saying or admitting that I was a rape victim would be unfair to other women who had it worse. It also seemed unfair to my boyfriend who cared about me, and unfair to me because I am not a victim.
Wow, wow, wow. Guys. I'm saying guys, but it's guys. It's the generalization for everybody. That is serious, and that is for me, yeah, that's an eye opener too. And you know what? It happens. And in the workplace, I've had somebody come up to me and tell me something similar, and I flat out told her, I was like, "That's wrong." that And I was like, "I'm sorry to tell you, but that doesn't sound right, and you shouldn't be allowing yourself to be abused like that." And she was saying some other things and telling me, and I think she felt comfortable talking to me about that. But I flat out told her this was, wow, almost 10 years ago, 10, 15 years ago. Yeah. And I told her, I said, no, that's not good. That's not good. You need it. She was like, no, but we're together, we had a child and da, da, da. I said, you don't want to expose yourself to that anymore, and your child, especially if your child is there. And she just felt trapped, and I think that's what you described a little bit. But I can't add anything else to that because that's why we're having this podcast. That's why we're having this podcast. And I think leaders need to hear something just like that for their people. So, but May, if there's anything that else you want to say to our listeners as we close this out, and I'm pretty sure if they haven't downloaded the book, they need to download it as soon as we're done with this podcast, and because this is a rich resource that I think people need to have. It needs to be in every, to me, I think, even in government organizations. So I want to encourage you, and I know you are. Keep on bringing your message. Download her book if you haven't done it already. It's super powerful. Again, it's called "Was I Assaulted? My Guide to Healing as a Survivor." But maybe before we go, do you have any last words for our listeners?
Okay, Joe, thank you so much again for this opportunity to come on your show. Thank you, all the listeners out there, the leaders out there. And I wanted to finish it off with one last excerpt, and this is the epilogue. So when you read the book, please read the prologue and the epilogue. I know sometimes we want to skip those, but those really set the scene for the book. And so at this time, I want to read the epilogue to you. I am so elated that this book found its way in your hands. It was written for you to read at this very moment in your life. It came to you when you were ready to receive the content inside. I hope this book has provided you with the skills you needed to be a better parent, partner, sibling, child, or person. I hope it has also given you a sense of connectedness. You are not the only one who has gone through what you have, and you are not alone. Therefore, if you haven't already done so, give yourself permission to start talking about it with someone. It can be a therapist, family member, or close friend. I hope this book has empowered you to find the voice that was taken from you and begin to take control of your life. I saw it written that God can turn your ashes into beauty. This is so beautiful in my healing journey in two ways. First, I realized that all the ugly things in my life that I had been trying to hide or pretend weren't there, God could turn it into something beautiful. For me, this book and my business are the beautiful things that God created from all the ugly associated with being assaulted. Then my mentor, after reviewing my book, said, it's like the phoenix rising from the ashes. I didn't know what that meant until I looked it up. The phoenix is a mythical bird that at the end of its life goes back to its nest to die, being consumed by fire. But then a new phoenix is born from the ashes of the old one. And like the bird, you have to die to rise from your old ways and how you used to do things. Essentially, dying to burn your connections to the past. But from those ashes, you can rise again into a new, more powerful being. That is what you are doing. You are confronting your past, burning it, not letting it control you anymore, and rising again to be a new and better you. You are a phoenix soaring above your ashes and who you used to be. You are stronger, braver, and wiser than you were. So fly high in your newfound strength, courage, and wisdom today.
Wow. The book is called Was I Assaulted? My Guide to Healing as a Survivor. Download it today. It is free. Rise, rise, rise from the ashes. If you don't get anything else out of this, you can rise from the ashes and have beauty again and experience healing like May has. Super awesome. May, thank you so much for coming on again
Thank
and
you.
sharing your story. So May, can you share how can our audience get in contact with you?
Yes, please visit my website at www.delaocoaching.com, and that's DELAO coaching.com. Or you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube at Was I Assaulted? So the same title as my book, Was I Assaulted? And you can find me on those social media platforms. Or you can email me personally at May at hold on one second, May. That used to say, okay, at May at DeLaoCoaching.com. And I'll respond to you personally.
Outstanding. Thank you so much again, May, for coming on. Guys, there's healing. There's healing. Get the book. Download it today. She has it free for you guys as an awesome resource. Thank you again, May, for coming on. And guys, we'll see you on the next podcast. God bless you guys. And like I always tell you, have a positive expectation of God's goodness in your life today. God bless, guys.